Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you for showing up on a Saturday afternoon for the meetup. We really appreciate us giving your valuable time. I also want to say hello to all the online viewers who are watching us right now. Today we have a very specific, unexplored form of meetup, which is design system meetup. This is just a thing for you to just look at. There's a GeekyAnts guest Wi-Fi and password. You can connect your laptops to that and phones for your usage. Just to give you an overview, yeah, that's there you go. In case this is not working, you can let us know. You can reach out to the team at the back, and they can help you out with the same. That's me. My name is Adrika Guha. I'm the community manager here at GeekyAnts, and I help the communities grow over here internally and externally as well. Those are my social handles, so you can follow me there. Just to give you a brief about Geeky Ants, what are we about? So, Geeky Ants is a young product and service company based in Bangalore. We do anything and everything related to web and mobile app development, and we are extremely passionate about building top class products for our customers. And also, we are extremely community driven. We have gotten a lot from the community, and that's why we thought of giving the community back as much as possible. These are the collection of the active communities we have right now at GeekyAnts. We have React Native, we have Flutter, we have Design, we have React Design System, and we just started with QA, Postgres, and R&D. So to focus more on the design system DLR group, we started this back in June 2022 itself, and we today stand at a member count of 412. And that's quite a lot of progress in a couple of months, considering that we have only had one event done in the past. And here we are with the second edition of the Design System Meetup at Bangalore. We have an amazing line of speakers today, and we would want you to engage with each one of them and get to know about the design system and what we are trying to do at GeekyAnts with it as well. So I would like to get the show started, and I would have Himanshu on stage today. Sanket actually was not well, so we had to replace him with Himanshu at the moment. So yeah, he'd be talking about a little bit about what we are doing at GeekyAnts with Design System and what are the goals we have set for ourselves, and how Geeky Ants is using Design System to help every other community as well. So Himanshu, the stage is yours.
Okay, hello everyone, and welcome to the Design System Hybrid Meetup. My name is Himanshu Satija, and I am a software engineer at GeekyAnts. I've been here for more than 7 years. I mainly work on React and React Native, but these past couple of sorry, something happened. Sorry. Okay. Yeah. So for some time now, I've also been working on a couple of design system projects, and I lead the internal design system community at GeekyAnts. So one of the major objectives of GeekyAnts has always been to empower everyone to build things, and that's what we've been trying to do. We have built Native Base, which is a popular UI component library for React and React Native. I've been involved in this from its very conception, which was around early 2016. Native Base has come a long way since then. We hope to make it the best and the most useful UI library out there. BuilderX was another one of our major products, and it's a design tool which gives you React and React Native code for your designs. Although we are not working on it anymore, we learned a lot from it, and we might be working on something to replace it. Let's see. So, coming back to the topic of the day, design systems. What is a design system? I'm sure at least one of the talks today will be covering this, so I'll just give you folks a basic idea. A design system can mean different things for different people, but in general, you can say it's a set of shared patterns and resources across an organization uh, that helps maintain consistent design consistency across its products, apps, websites, or like any kind of digital assets. And there can be a lot of parts in a design system, but there are a few which are very integral, like design guidelines, design tokens, and component library. You can find them in these things, at least in almost all of the design systems. There are a few other things that you'll find in some and you won't find in others. We'll be learning more about at least a few things here in today's talks. So, what's going on in the world of design systems? Just a few days back, a design system conference by Figma happened. Schema by Figma, that rhymes for some reason. There was a lot of interesting. There were a lot of interesting talks there. Go check them out if you haven't already. I found out about a formula for calculating ROI of a design system. I didn't know it was possible, but maybe it's a good thing because now you might be able to pitch design systems with some quantitative data backing you up. Another thing, people have been talking about multi-brand design systems recently. Uh, it might be helpful for those organizations who have multiple brands under them and they want to save resources. But we can imagine this must be challenging. But let's hope we get something good out of this. Then, what are we at GeekyAnts doing about design systems? So, quite recently, actually, just a few days back, we launched this website, Start Design System. This is a collection of useful resources uh, that will help you get started with design systems, that will help you create design systems. We are adding resources like blogs, blog posts, or tutorials, and all the events that are happening around design systems on this website. So this should be a good starting point for anyone. And the next one is Geek Lego. This is actually a service by Geeky Ants, which will help other organizations get started with their design systems. Not just get started, actually building their design systems end to end. And we have been working on our own design system at Geeky Ants. Also, we have been working with some other companies for their design systems. As I said, like I am involved in a couple of those projects. So we can say we know a thing or two about design systems, and we are also experimenting with some tools internally, which might help us get there quicker, like to build the design systems comparatively quickly. And at least one of those tools will be covering in one of the talks today. That will be a talk by Minu from Geeky Ants. So we'll see. Another thing, we have other meetup groups. That's one of them is React Native Bangalore, Flutter Bangalore, and Svelte Bangalore. Some of our other meetup groups, if you're interested in any of these, you can join. React Native Bangalore is actually one of our, not one of, actually our oldest meetup group. This is the first one that we started, and right now there are more than 6,500 members in this group, and this is also one of the largest React Native meetup groups in the world. So yeah, we have come a long way there, and we hope we can also take this design system meetup group also there. We have a code of conduct for this meetup. So do not use any hate speech and inappropriate comments. We should keep it friendly. Be respectful and refrain from strong words, even if you have different opinions. This is a space for growth and learning. We should promote that. Get to know your fellow attendees and speakers. Uh, and meetups are a really great way to do that, network with people. So, talking about today's lineup, we have four talks. The first one is measuring the success of your design system by Chaitanya from Razorpay. The next one is by Devesh from Newton, titled Why Design Systems. Then we'll have a short break of 20 minutes. We'll have some refreshments and again a good time to network with people. And then the third talk is Design System Change the Way We Work by Ronak from Cult Fit. And the last one of the day is How We Built a Design System Builder by Meenu from GeekyAnts. So without any further delay, let's get rolling. Thank you.
Thank you, Himanshu, for the amazing intro on design system. I think anybody who is at a beginner level also got pretty much an idea about what we are dealing with at the moment. Like he said, we have an amazing line of speakers, and as we proceed, I would like to call upon stage Chaitanya Derukar. He is going to talk about measuring the success of your design system. To give a little bit brief about who Chaitanya is, what he does, he's a lead front end engineer at Razorpay at the moment. He's also working with the platform and engineering team at Razorpay. His primary work would involve front end tooling and design system. Apparently, when he's not working, you can find him spotted on a couch reading a book or gaming or scrolling through Twitter, and he says there's no priority or order in that. So, without any further ado, Chaitanya, the stage is all yours. Thank you.
Yeah. Am I audible? Cool. Hi, folks. Good afternoon. I'm Chaitanya. I work as a lead front-end engineer at Razorpay. You can find me on Twitter at the rate another coder. So today I'm here to talk about measuring the success of your design system. Um, I mean, okay, I'm just going to be honest now. It's just us. So I just put in this title so that they could let me on the stage. But in reality, I'm going to talk about tips on how to not get fired while you're building a design system. There's no 100% success rate, so don't catch hold of me if you get fired. But this might help you out. So before we look into tips, I'll talk a little bit about how I almost probably got fired from Razorpay while building a design system. So about 2 years ago, we started building a mobile app, and we decided to build a design system with the mobile app. And because it was with React Native, we built it. We also made it themable so that you can theme it later on if you want. We kept provisions to build web counterparts so that if we need web components as well after React Native, we can do that. We built another mobile app with the same design system, one with light theme, one with dark theme, and it worked out brilliantly. And we were quite happy. But it just didn't see any further traction. It just died out after that. And we started wondering what went wrong. And when we started reflecting a little, we sort of understood why we didn't succeed. We built only for mobile. All the components that we built were only for React Native. We assumed that web developers will build it whenever they need it and add it to the design system. Even though we had React and React Native, we had no common way of sharing styles or logic between the two frameworks. We didn't think about accessibility at all. We didn't think about motion at all. We didn't think about whether or not we need animations or micro animations in our system. So we went back again and we started building it again. So a couple of quarters back, we started reworking on Blade, and this time we built for web as well as mobile. We built the components for React and React Native. We shared their styling logic and a lot of logic as well. We covered as many use cases of products as we could. We wrote detailed RFCs, which enabled us to really research into what sort of components we want to build and what the API of each component should look like. We documented every single decision we made, so we knew historically why we made certain decisions. We made accessible components out of the box. We standardized motion. We had a brand language for animation for Razorpay. And then we thought, it's great, it's a brilliant design system, it's great, it's just great. And when you've built something great, why do you need to measure it? Because when we kept telling people it's a great design system, I promise this is how we would look like, and that's not going to work with our leadership. So we had to go back and think about how we can measure what we are building. We can't just go about saying we are building something great. So with by measuring, we were able to align our stakeholders and our leaders to the vision that we had with our design system. We were able to bring in more visibility into what we are building in the design system. We were able to understand our own progress and growth of the design system. We established a common goal for the team to chase, and we were able to make data driven decisions. And I know all of this sounds like corporate mumbo jumbo. What do I mean by all of this? So what should we really measure? So even before getting into what should we measure, first you need to ask yourself what you're trying to achieve with the design system. So when we looked at our goals, we wanted brand consistency. So at Razorpay, we have a lot of products, lots and lots of products. And considering all the acquisitions that Razorpay is doing, we were getting way too many products coming into our tech stack, and we had to support them. We had to make them look like Razorpay. So brand consistency became a major pillar for us. And because we work with the platform team, our main area of interest is enabling our engineers and designers to build better and build faster. So developer productivity and designer productivity became our two more pillars that we had to rely on. So when we talk about brand consistency, we had to look at what brand inconsistency existed in our products. So we had to showcase how inconsistent our components were across Razorpay. So this is one of the examples where we had so many variants of buttons that we just lost track. Everything just looked different. And we realize that higher the instances of a component that is being used, the higher the likelihood that it's being used inconsistently. So because buttons were used everywhere, it's going to become inconsistent eventually. So we did a audit of all our products across Razorpay, and we tried to extract all the instances of every single component that exist in our different products. So this is sort of what the audit looked like. It was just an Excel sheet. But what this helped us is essentially a priority list of components that we want to build top down. And this also sort of gave us a complete list of most frequently used components. So now that we knew what our most frequently used components were, we could sort of have a goal around it. So we had goals like build 80% of the most frequently used components within the design system. And we kept taking these goals quarter after quarter, which enabled us to really create roadmaps very easily to achieve this goal. But obviously, consistency isn't a switch to be turned on. You can't be inconsistent yesterday and consistent today. It requires a lot of time and efforts. So we asked our engineering and design teams to adopt a design system iteratively. We asked them to start adopting to tokens like colors, spacing, border, shadow, font, and all of that. As you can see, this was Razorpay X. They were our first adopters for our tokens. Uh, the difference is very subtle. They started using our colors. They started using our spacing tokens and font tokens, which meant that now we had to measure the adoption of these tokens. So this is a screenshot from our Amplitude dashboard. So you can see the docs website is using our spacing tokens and our payment theme. And on the left, you can see the segmentation. That's tokens used, grouped by project name and module name. Module is essentially which tokens they were using. Then we had to think about developer and designer productivity. So how do you quantify productivity? So we started talking to our leadership in terms of building a generic form. So we showed them this form. We told them that when you're building this form, you need all of these components. And to build these components without a design system and to build the entire form, it's going to take about 15 days. You go through a design phase, you go through a development phase, and after 15 days, you're shipping something to production. But what happens when the design decides after 15 days that they want to change a button to look a little subtle? Now, again, you go through the same process. Sure, it'll take a little less time, but that just means that total days to go live is now up to 19 days. And now, what happens if you want to build the same form for Android and iOS? You just multiply that by two, I guess. You're at 38 days. But with a design system, we were able to bring it down to just 4 days, where it's very little efforts required by design, where they can just drag and drop all the components that are ready. Developers can just use the components that are already available in the design as well. And this is how we sort of justified productivity, how our developers and designers can become more productive. And just by these calculations, you can save about 80% of your time and efforts if you use the design system, which meant that every time they use a component from a design system, they will be delivering faster, which also meant that higher the component usage, higher the impact we've had on designer and developer productivity, which meant measuring the components that are used in every project is very crucial for us. So now we started looking at adoption of all the components across every project. So this is a segmentation of components used by project name and module name. So you can see business banking, which is Razorpay X, were using around 123 of our buttons, and we have segmented every single project and component, and we get this data real time. We realized how critical adoption is. Adoption sort of became a north star, because if we want to achieve our goals of brand consistency, designer and developer productivity in the long run, adoption is what we have to chase. So we started treating our design system team as a startup within Razorpay, whose goal is to sell the design system to as many customers as possible. So we started measuring the number of people adopting, the number of projects adopting to Blade. So this was our trend line. We were going up, and because of this trend line, we had a clear judge of our progress on how we are going ahead with the design system. So every task that we picked up, every decision that we made, now had to contribute to this trend line. Everything that we do, this trend line has to go up. And because of that, we also realized that the data enables us to make better decisions. Because we were treating our projects as our customers, we had to get more insights on how our product was being used. Our product is the design system, and our customers were the developers and the designers. So we needed data. And we also wanted to reiterate to accommodate new use cases that used to come up, which would mean that it could lead to breaking changes. But without data, we wouldn't know what we are breaking. So we started diving further into our components. So here you can see a button and its usage grouped by variant. So we know how many people are using the default button, none is default, secondary, primary, tertiary. We could do that with the size of the button. We knew how many people were using large, medium, small, and extra small. And not just this is just an example. We could dive deep into every single component that is being used by our projects, and understand every single prop that they're using, how they're using, where they're using it. So recently we had to change the small size of our batch, and essentially what it meant was we introduced a new medium size. So our small had to become medium. So all our consumers had to change small to medium. That's a tedious effort. So we're going to break things for people, and we were scared of making that change. But because we had data to help us out, we just looked it up. Who is using batch of size small, and we grouped it by project name. So we knew it was just business banking who was using that. So instead of being scared about making that change, we could just reach out to business banking, ask them to make that change or make that change for them, and then go ahead and break our design system. So that's how we were able to make more meaningful decisions and take more risks with our design system, because we had data to back it up. But sure, all of this data seems nice. It's not like I'm sitting there and calculating how many people are using the button. We need some way to automate all of it. So we did that with GitHub Actions. So we had a weekly cron job running, which essentially takes all the front end projects at Razorpay, does some magic on them, figures out what data it needs, and sends it to an analytics service, which in our case was Amplitude. So let's look at what this magic is within the GitHub Actions that we were doing. So we would clone every single front-end project at Razorpay. We would parse through the source code with an AST parser and extract out all the import statements that were in that source code. So AST is essentially a object representation of your source code. So if I pass it a JavaScript file, it's going to tell me what that JavaScript source code essentially contains. So we just wanted all the imports that were made for at razorpay/blade. And we just take that data and send it to our analytics service. This is sort of a small snippet of what it looks like. Essentially, we used Babel parsers to parse our AST data, but I gotta admit it was quite complicated to a point where I think I've commented out all the logic. But if you're interested in AST parsing, you can look at Babel parser, and this was quite complicated to maintain. So then came React Scanner. So we realized that there's a library out there that essentially will go through our source code and give us all the data we need. So that's it. All that complicated logic, it narrowed down to just 4 lines of code. Just give it the source code and it will extract out all the components that it needs. And this is what the raw data looked like. So you can see there's a button over there and you have all the instances of the button. I've just kept one instance here, but in the real data you get every single instance of the button. You get to know what it's imported like. You get to understand every single prop that the customer has used on that button. In this case, it was a secondary variant with a type as button and size medium. You also get to know exact file where they use it and exact line where they use it. And this is true for every single component usage across every single project. So we took all of this data and we sent it to our analytics service. What this meant is that with AST, we were getting only the number of imports. With React Scanner, we were getting the exact usage instances. On if there's one file, one import, but 10 times they're using the button, we get the data 10 times. But unfortunately, it was limited only to extracting component data and not token data. So for token data, we are still using AST parsing, but uh, for component data, React Scanner has worked out really well for us. But honestly, are numbers enough when you talk about measuring the success of your design system? It's aimed at improving designer and developer productivity and their experience. Does number do justice to what we are measuring? So we started talking to our customers. We did a survey. We asked them direct questions like, how has Blade impacted your productivity? How has it reduced your UI reiterations? And has it improved the handoffs between design and developers? And I got to admit, there's room for improvement. We are not at a place where I could say that it's amazing. It still needs improvement, which is why we talk to our customers. We get to know where the gaps are. And as next steps, we are going to do focus group discussions with our developers and designers to dive further into why they feel that certain things are not working out. And along with that, we also took feedback from our primary adopters, both designers and developers. And we actually got qualitative data, which we could present to our leadership on how it has impacted the day to day of their designers and developers. So what next? What are we planning to do next? We're not done here yet. We want to measure the percentage coverage of our design system on every single page that is rendered on Razorpay. And we can use that metric to improve our per page coverage. And that will directly help us to get closer to brand consistency. I know this sounds a little complicated, but as an example, this is what we intend to do. So if you see this dummy page, all the green boxes are components from the design system. On the right side on the console, you can see the total DOM nodes. There are 48 DOM nodes on this page, out of which 33 are built with our design system, which means that blade coverage is at 68%. So we are going to use this metric to chase next, and we'll keep increasing our blade coverage on every single page, on every single route, on every product at Razorpay. So just to summarize, understand what you want to achieve with your design system. Treat your design system like a startup. Grow the customer base and usage of your design system. Make decisions that will help you improve your adoption metrics. Extract as much data as you can in terms of how your customers use your product. And talk to your customers very, very frequently. You need to do quantitative and qualitative metrics at the same time. And of course, whatever I've spoken today has been a teamwork. This is my entire team. You can find them on Twitter. And our design system is open sourced at razorpay/blade. So if you're interested, you can go there and check out our source code. And that's all for today. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Chaitanya. That was a fabulous presentation, and I think you explained it pretty well for everybody here. The crowd can agree. Can we have another round of applause for Chaitanya, please? Moving on to the next speaker for today. His name is Devesh Shirsat, and he will be talking about why design systems. And also, he is at Newton School. He's a product design intern at the moment. He has 2 years of experience with application and mobile application, and also community centric platforms. He loves working on design system and experimenting with Figma. And also, he loves to write and share his own information and knowledge with the community. He's extremely active in the community sessions, just like us, and he loves watching documentaries. So let's have on stage Devesh for the next talk. All the best.
It was pretty insightful and data centric and data driven. My talk today would be a little bit from the designer's perspective, not much from the developer's perspective. Uh, we had a lot of experiences as a designer, as a team. All the experiences I'll be sharing today. So I'll not be explaining what we did for design system, but why actually we needed and what were the symptoms that we discovered that we actually wanted to start working on design systems. So a little bit about myself. I started as a developer in 2019. I used to work on React.js, and since then, I pondered upon this field known as product design, and since then, I've been pretty active in the design community also. Since then, I've worked at several places that didn't have a design system at all, places which were only having a scope, worth 3 months of time and didn't have pretty long deadlines to be working on design systems, and also worked at places where the design system was the need of an hour. So I have both the perspectives, and I'll also tell what contrast it shows in terms of how do we proceed in those two different situations. Uh, at Cliff, at Cliff AI, we started working on the design of our platform. We had a motivation to start working on design system just looking at the outcomes of it, but we didn't realize it was not the way we should be doing it, because we when we started working on it, we didn't have a positive traction for the design system. We were pretty stuck on that part. So what made us move was to work on several features at once and then backtrack and reverse engineer all that design that we proceeded, and then audit out the several key components of it, and then make the proceedings. So why design systems? First, we need to understand what are the key customers of our design system as a design team. We need to cater three kinds of people, generally speaking. One is the designers, our fellow teammates. One are the product managers, and one are the product developers. So all these three entities work on the same thing, but have totally different language of doing things. Uh, what I'd say is we all do the common things. So there is an importance of having a shared language in the organization. So one important aspect is design system. So what design system brings is the shared language. What do we call a call to action or call it a button? whatever you might call it, but it should be consistent throughout the organization. So we want to make it, consistent throughout the organization. We want to make the shared language pretty clear and out. So what design system is, I'm not going into depth, but it's basically a repeatable solution for commonly recurring problems. What we try to do is, while we are designing and developing, we try to find a common pattern between these screens. We try to figure out what the common pattern is followed, and based on that pattern, we try to generalize it. So I'll come to the generalization part. Now, why do we, start working on a design system? Simple answer is, it's really easy for the teams to, work on the project rather than, focusing on the nitpicking part of it, and proceed with the design process pretty fast. Uh, One example is, if you can see the two different components, these are two very different components. One is a profile card and other one is a banner, a snack bar. But when you see that in terms of design, the card over here has three things. One is a place where there is an emoji, avatar. One is a place where there is a body, and one is a place there is an action. So, and the other one, the banner, which is completely disjoint of this. These are two very different components in terms of functionality, in terms of aesthetics, but there's this common thing in between those things. These two have, one has the avatar, one has an icon, one has an body, other also has a body, and one has an action, other has an action. So we can generalize it into a single, template, so to say, a template where there is a place for an icon or an avatar, a body where there is a title and a description, and there is an action button. So this is how we generalize things in terms of design. uh, it's not like, this is a pretty general example for you to understand how we, backtrack different kind of component and find commonalities between them to reduce decision making time. So what we do is, with this, template, what we do is we try to create as much variance as possible, right, based on different use cases across the platform. One is, let's say I want to use a toggle button instead of, a checklist. So we create several variants of it, and then, we create a generalized block. So this block is a template for us. So while creating a correlated element in future, we don't need to reinvent the wheel and get into nitpicking. We can just, streamline the process and refer to a particular generalized template. For the same example, this is a very popular example of modals. We created a modal and, divided into several blocks. One is header, infographic, body, and footer. So header will consist of a title or a action, close action, or it can be anything else. Infographic will consist of an illustration or infographic or a video. It can be there, it cannot be there. Completely dependent on the use case. And there would be a body, and then would be a footer where there will be actions, or it might be present or not. So we create one more example is, there is a body, there is a title, header, there's a body, and there's a footer. So what we do is we create a generalized standard, a template. So the thing I told you about the standard language, a common, shared language, is that a standard interpretation of the languages, which means is that the nomenclature should be pretty clear in terms of use cases. The team should not be using several different nomenclature. The development team should use the same token name as the designers and as the visual, brand designers. So in terms of spacing, grid, and sizes also, the most common problem that we faced earlier was that we couldn't communicate what kind of grid we are following, because in Figma we use pixels, but in terms of when the developers used to get to it, they used Bootstrap. So in Bootstrap they used column format. So based on that column format, we had to, change our approach of designing. We actually used pixels, but we had to communicate how much pixels is how many columns. So this is how we changed our process to make sure that we are commonly, using a shared language. one of the most important thing about building a design system is that we have to, reduce concentrated knowledge in an organization. We have to increase the bus count. So increasing the bus count means that, say for example, I am working on a design system solely, and I say, let's say that a bus hit me, unfortunately, and I'm the only one with the knowledge of design system. There is no one else in the organization who had an understanding of that particular flow. So what we have to make sure is that in an organization there should be no silos, no concentrated knowledge in terms of design. Every part of every stakeholder should be aware of design systems. What are the key aspects of it? How do how is the approach of design system? What are the key components, and how are these components built? Um, so the question comes is, do we need a design system? So there are many symptoms that show that you have to be working on design systems. One of them is, no consistency across various features. So one of the most important thing as a first step we do is to audit the workflow, right? When we didn't have any kind of design system, we only had a UI kit, so to say, at cliff.ai. But when we started auditing all the components and elements, we saw that there was no correlation between the templates that I shared about. We didn't have any kind of templates. We didn't have a common style guide for text or colors or spacing. So we started with a spatial system. We started with typography, and we started to get aligned in terms of consistency. We just wanted to make sure whatever we build is consistent throughout the workflow, the user flow across several features. Another symptom is the time that gets wasted upon non-impactful and redundant decisions. So while designing, most of you designers would have experienced that while designing, we get lost in terms of, rather than addressing the user UX aspect of it, we just start nitpicking the text and the spacing of it. Most of that can be addressed with design system. uh, it streamlines the flow, because now we have a usable component structure. We have a usable instances of those components which we can alter to some extent, and with the help of Figma component properties and the next nested instance swapping, we can now easily alter any kind of instance in Figma, which saves hell lot of time, which can be invested in a very impactful uh, task. Another one symptom for you to have a design system is that when a new person joins the team, he has no idea about what workflow we follow or what kind of practices we follow, what style guide we have. There is no proper documentation for it. So that's the time when we have to start investing on the design system. We have to start auditing and documenting all the components, and to create onboarding documentations for the newcomers also, so they can also contribute to the design system. So one of the most important aspect we realized as a design system team was that we had to create a harmony across the brand. So in terms of brand, we had a visual designer who used to create Instagram posts which were way off from what we used to design at our web pages or in our design functions, which was supposed to be addressed. So we considered having visual designers on board, to make them understand how we created our designs, and started creating style guides and components, the textiles and colors for them also, so they can also reuse the same components and same element without wasting any kind of time on brainstorming how we should proceed. Obviously it comes with its own shortcomings, that we sometimes are so bounded with the constraints that we start to ignore the visual aspects of it. But that's the problem. We have to find the equilibrium between exploring and then converging back. So uh, what practice we followed was to develop the design system in a very iterative fashion. What allowed us the iterative fashion allowed us to create a component not just in terms of functionality, but also in terms of aesthetics, because we also want to make sure that we are creating as visually appealing components as possible, which is a struggle while working on a design system, because you have to address the usability and scalability parts of it, but the visual part of it, uh, that's the most important thing to address also. So iterative approach is one thing that's really suitable for people who want to create a harmony and create a scalable system. Uh, and one of the most important thing that I observed was, for us, working on design system was mainly, reverse engineering our own designs. We tried to work on design system from scratch. We decided to work on it from scratch, from 0 to 1, and then apply it on the product. It really didn't work out as we expected, because sometimes we would get a satisfiable visual outcome, but then we used to see that it's not as uh, you know functional as we expected it to be. So what we did was, we created several iterations of it without keeping design system in mind. And after exploring and being happy, like after auditing it with the other team members, product managers, and other stakeholders, we realized that it's really easy. It gets really easy when you, at initial phases, it gets really easy when you work on the design and then reverse engineer to create a design system. That is something that we thought what was very easy for us. So when do we not need a design system? It's a very, like, a controversial thing to say, because design system is something that has no. So basically, why do we need design system is a pretty easy thing to say. But when do we not need a design system is like, we don't need, we should not address the problems that are not existent, right? So when you are shipping MVP, or you are trying to, you are in a very earlier stages of your product, you are just starting to iterate on it, you don't need a design system. There are other alternatives, other solutions to it. I'll be sharing those solutions also. When you have a very short duration, I used to work with digital agencies, and they had a very shorter scope and very shorter duration for their projects, which was not very feasible for us to work on a design system. We had a component library and a UI library published, but scaling a design system for just 3 months was not very useful. Finding a market fit, when you are in the earlier stages of your market fit, when you are trying to find the right sweet spot for your products, and you are in the discovery phase, is when you don't need a design system. uh, so if you fall in any of these cases, you can build your design system on top of already published design systems. There are many available design systems, like ant design system, or there are many, like, open source design systems like Razorpay and Cultfit. We can also reuse those design systems as a designer, and then help developers collaborate into it. Yeah, so it was not, again, it was a very collaborative approach in terms of design systems, and these were the people whom I collaborated with. So yeah, I hope you, yeah, connect with them, and if there are any questions, I'm open to it. That's it.
Thank you, Devesh, for the amazing talk. It was really very good and very well explained. A lot of insights. We will continue with our third speaker and our fourth speaker right after a short break. It might get a little monotonous to have so much information on design system together all at once. So we have a 15-minute break. We have some refreshments out there for you. Feel free to connect with each other. That is all we wanted to bring people together in one room for. So don't forget to do that. And also, we have changed the guest Wi Fi and password. We have mentioned that on the wall there. There's a poster stuck. You can refer to that in case you need to connect. So we'll be right back after a short break. Thank you. Welcome back after the break. We would request you all to settle down at the moment so that we can go ahead with the next talk. We'll just take another minute to start. People are still walking in, so just give us 1 minute. Welcome back, everyone. I hope you all had a good break and networking session in between. So, we have Ronak Shah with us as our next speaker, who would be talking about how design system has changed the way we work at the moment. He is working at Cult Fit and he's a senior product designer. He is also interested in product strategy and collaborative design. Except for that, he's also writing a novel on sci-fi, which is extremely interesting, and we would love to know more about it once it's done. And also, he's interested in 3D art. So let's welcome Ronak on the stage.
Am I audible? I think that's the first question I want to ask, right? Cool. I am extremely excited to share my learnings on design system with you guys, right? Disclaimer, of course, is that all of these learnings that you're going to see here is retrospective. So, of course, when we started, we did not know all of these. Only when we worked after 1.5 years of effort, when we look back, is what we realized, and these learnings came to sight. Right? Right, let me just move further. Are anyone here who use CultFit app or have any experience using that app, right? So okay, there are a few. So long back, I think somewhere around 1.5 years back, right? Our visual language was very different, and it was essentially a white theme. We, of course, see it as more than just white or black theme, but let's simplify here that piece. And we wanted to take it to another level, and we worked on a different language together. And the resultant language, of course, there's more complexity there, but let's keep it simple. It was black theme, right? The new theme was black, and we were all very excited, and we called it Aurora, right? This is essentially the visual language that we all worked up towards. Now, the challenge is how will you scale this new language, Aurora, to all the different screens, right? At that point of time, we had 4+ unique intent products. So, of course, one is around Cult Fit is known for fitness, but then we had mental health product. We also had e-commerce product, right? Of course, now sitting with developers and getting every single screen changed one by one is a painstakingly difficult and not a very efficient way to get things done. That's exactly where design system came out to us as a very organic solution. Right? So subatoms, or how Brad Frost puts design tokens in a way of subatoms, which is essentially style guide elements, right? Different colors, what kind of spacings, all of those different elements. That is our language. And from there, we took it to 500+ components and more, of course. Right. So Brad Frost was a pioneer in atomic design methodology, right? So that was our core crux of where we started. He feels, or he says, design system is an official story of how your organization designs and builds digital products, right? And I very much, of course, align with this statement. Looking back is how I would define design system to be. Well, this has already been covered very well by previous speakers. So I won't spend a lot of time. Let's just go fast over this piece. Design system is a meaningful bundle of well-documented pattern libraries where an ecosystem of interconnected patterns and shared practices live, right? Now, thanks to Devesh, my work on pattern is now very easy. I don't have to explain that. It's reusable, repeating components or practices. Interconnected the point of interconnection or interdependency of different patterns is something that I would like to little bit put light on. So pattern libraries means collection of patterns, and these patterns can be color system, type scale, spacing scale, right? All of those collection I am terming as pattern libraries. Even the component libraries is part of this entire piece. Now the thing is, these pattern libraries are dependent on each other, right? So you change color here, even the component changes there, depending on if that component uses that color or not. This is just an example, but that entire thing snowballs very fast. Shared practices, again, something which Devesh already covered, is around design principles, is something that we strongly have today. And guidelines, what are the do's and don'ts, which is essentially useful for new joiners, as also mentioned by previous speaker. I'll go through it because you don't need it now. Previous speaker has covered it. Okay, so just a very quick disclaimer. What I mean when I say design system, it's not just a very fancy file living on the design software of your choice. Right? It is also the code. So there's a development effort that has gone, and design plus code together is the entire package that we call as design system. Right? All right. When we think about design system, the first word that comes to our mind, why design system? Consistency, right? And Chaitanya has also talked very deeply on consistency, and it absolutely is the right way forward. But consistency creates familiarity and brand recall, right? From the user side, from a user's perspective, clearly that's a very huge value add. So somewhere around 1.5 years back, this is exactly how our effort began. Standardization is the word we used to give to that effort at that time. And so let's say we pick up the confirmation experiences, we pick up the feedback experiences, right? And we have this already mentioned different unique intent products. We see how the confirmation screens are. We create a common pattern, very much in the way mentioned by Devesh before as well. And then we have a certain common blueprint, and we apply that blueprint everywhere, and cool. Then developers are in action, and it is live. And then we come back, what's the ROI? We have nothing to show for the return. It's just the experience is more consistent. It's good for users, but it's meh. It's right. Essentially, you don't have strong way to defend or even measure whether it has impact. Hence, coming to the second piece, consistency creates efficiency, right? Now, this is essentially where the magic started to happen. And I would say this is essentially the point where we actually entered the arena of design system, from the style guide or even a UI kit to a real proper design system that can live up to its name, the essence of what design system really means. So consistency creates efficiency, but consistency is hard. We all know that, right? Consistency is hard, especially at scale. And scale is a very important keyword to keep in mind as we move forward, right? So product life cycle, Devesh also mentioned this before about who does not need a design system and where design system is essential. So again, very quickly going through this. So there are four stages in a given product usually. You have an introduction phase, growth, maturity, and then the product declines and you sunset the product, right? In introduction, the entire team is trying to develop conviction whether the idea works, whether users value it. You are trying to get product market fit, right? You want first 1,000 fans. Once you have that, once the team has conviction that okay, this product works, there are enough people to vote with their wallets, so to speak, right? Then you get into the growth stage, and then you hit saturation, and then you fall down. And clearly, in all of these, only the middle two stages, right? The growth and maturity are the stages where you have scale. In growth, the scaling begins, and then in maturity, you have scale. And this is essentially are the two phases where design system has its most impact. That is what I have learned when I look back. So efficiency increasingly matters when scaling begins. If you don't have scale, then it's very hard to sell the proposition of design system to your higher ups, essentially at your common place. That's why some products will say design system did not add a lot of value, and they will be right because maybe they were in the initial or ending phases. And other products will say design system definitely helped, depending on what phase they are in. Okay, so again, design system is all about making consistency convenient. This was a very interesting learning for me. Consistency is hard, as we just saw. And this is exactly where design system came for us, that scaling that language across all the different products and screens that we had, right? So that making that consistency convenient was a very key value add that we felt looking back for design system. One very important thumb rule to keep in mind, at least I keep in mind that personally, Bigger the heartache of this of scale, bigger and more varied are the benefits of having a design system. So the perceived benefit of design system is also different depending on who you are. It's not everyone is not gonna see the same benefit in design system, and they should not, which does make sense. So now let's dive further into a very interesting link between design system and efficiency, because that is the piece which is most sellable and which also makes more sense. Right. Now, if you are working on a classic product or digital product, you will have three functions, right? The EPD trio, that is. So you have engineering, product, and design. Of course, there will be other domain experts depending on what product you work on, but for the sake of simplicity, let's just focus on these three. So you have product managers, you have designers, you have developers. So the amount of time it takes for you to conceive the product, right? Where the product managers comes with ideas, brainstorming, all of that, the time to conception, the amount of time it takes to design the product, and the amount of time the developers take to develop that. So let's call it design velocity and development velocity. I'm not putting MENT because it doesn't look good. Form over function. Okay, so then it goes to true. So the final result of that is amount of time you take to ship to the market. So time to market is, let's call it as shipping velocity. And now let's see how design system adds value on these stages, right? Okay, of course, one of the important thing is we already have component libraries in place. So you can reuse component libraries and then it gives you a workflow boost. But not only to designers, it also gives boost to developers, right? Because you just have to pick up and assemble components and boom, you have something ready. One anecdote I can share there is once we actually started this. So adoption of design system is super hard, especially when you're making something new. So at that time, I can recall we were working on a mental health product, and it was gonna go live. And we had one component that was, I think, the first few components that were made live. So we simply just put together a product in 1 week, which was unprecedented in essentially the place I work at, right? In one week, so the product conception stage was already over, but in 1 week we were able to put together an entire product and make it live, which essentially is just this workflow on steroids point very strong. So let's add this further, right? So workflow boost. So this boosts your design velocity and development velocity. That directly goes to the overall time to market is reduced, time saving, right? Now, if you are a designer, you can relate, I'm pretty sure. What you design on the top, let's say, there's a pattern and what gets developed, right? Let's call it the first draft of code. This is like one of the most big pain points that I have found when I was new as a designer. Now, because you already have a component library and you have a design system team which is working on that, the design review for visual accuracy with the coders already, right? So you already have high precision implementation in place. That reduces a lot of pain of reviewing the code for accuracy for design owners who are working on projects, not design system, but the design owners who are working on their own respective projects. It reduces time, it gives them more time to focus on something that I'm coming to next. But so precision implementation that again reduces development velocity, right? This again further improves shipping velocity. Now, because we already figured out, designers now have more time, right? So where will they invest this extra time? Because now they don't have to do eye candy pixel pushing, right? They don't have to make something look pretty for presentation, not for handoff, right? So this leads to this more of that time can go into innovation, right? They can now focus more of their time with the PMs working on the product, working on the UX, right? Actually testing out those designs rather than actually making it look good. And this is exactly what we also saw at our place. Overall amount of time that people, the developers, the designers, sorry, the design owners spend with their PMs, right? That literally increased, and more of input was free and available to be given on product conception stage by the designer. So essentially, imagine like the amount of brain power you have on the conception stage increases. I won't call it double, but it increases definitely. And even the product thinking. So overall, this entire EPD trio, right? Suddenly now it's it is able to give more product focus than it was before, just with the same number of people and same talent. Now with Figma, we already know that we can make interactive prototypes, right? So we definitely did not shy away from that. So you can now create fast interactive prototypes. So the moment the screen is put together, the designer can just hit the play button, and show it and test it out with their users right away. So you can interactive prototype fast, and you can also user test even faster. Now, because we already saw that the shipping velocity is reduced, right? Time to market is fast. You can roll out just 10% of the new experience to the actual user base and run A/B experiments, and you can learn faster. So overall, your ability to learn fast also increases. This is a very less talked about benefit of design system that I have usually seen. So let's add this into the picture as well. So now you are able to create better quality, well-tested products faster, right? Which is essentially a huge efficiency boost. But we'll go further. So let's zoom out and let's talk about something that Devesh already mentioned: creating collective clarity with single source of truth, which is shared language, right? So let's zoom out further, right? So if we zoom out, you can see quality and speed is taken care of. But is there anything more we get out of design system? Shared language is essentially more about improving knowledge sharing, right? Now, a lot of these points, I think two of these points were already covered by Devesh, but I would like to focus on the first one. Has this happened with you that if you use Slack, you get a message, can you share this file with me, right? Can you point me to this component, right? And you will do that because, of course, otherwise you are a blocker to that person. So I term these kind of, whether this happened with chat or sometimes video calls or whatever, I call it as resource finding meetings or conversations, right? Which are essentially, what is it, avoidable meetings if there was a common source of truth. This is a very strong benefit that I have found of design system. These kind of meetings have reduced drastically. I would say somewhere by 80%. Right. So you don't have you have very less instances where people or your team members are reaching out to you. Also for developers, of course, reaching out to you and saying, can you point me to this file, to this component, to this code. All of that has reduced a lot. I won't go into the other two because already Devesh has covered. New joinee can also onboard very easily. You just share the entire. In our case, it is Figma link for design joinees. For developers, it's a different UI kit, and it also minimizes siloed knowledge clearly. So you simply are able to know more, and there is less concentrated knowledge. The interesting thing about new joinees is that they want to know this. They want to understand how do you design, what does your buttons look like. So we don't have to like pester them that, hey, please go through this, right? They will come and ask you that, can you tell us how do you do bottom navigations, for example? How do you do on your product, right? What is the way in which you design? Just as we saw in the earlier slides, Brad Frost said official story of how you design, right? They want to know this because this context is essential for, at least in the first 1 or 2 weeks, for new joinees to even get into action, irrespective of how talented they are. They want to know because they have to understand how you work to to join with you, right? So anyway, a good conclusion of this point is meetings. Meetings, we spend a lot of time meetings, right? No matter if you are an individual contributor, you have to accept that we spend a lot of time in just meetings, sitting around discussing. This is a huge value add that I think I have not heard a lot of people talk about is, let's say if a prototype is worth 1,000 meetings, then a design system is worth 100,000 ones. It saves a lot of avoidable meetings, and this is on top of the quality and speed boost that you already get, right? Let's talk about one last point, but a very important one: design and tech scalability, right? So we already talked about the shared knowledge bit. So let's add scalable system in the mix. So from my perspective, I feel scalable system has three components: pattern management. It is not dependent on tech anymore and brand anymore, right? So it is agnostic of both of those elements. Let's go with brand agnostic first. So every 5 to 7 years, usually roughly, brands either rebrand or completely change their entire brand language. This is not a very dependable information, but a good thumb rule to have, right? This is exactly something that I think was already mentioned by previous speakers. Design system helps you do that super easily. It's just changing on the code side. It is a class, so changing the value and it just changes everywhere, right? And multi-brand also is a very interesting thing that I'm now connecting after hearing to Devish's talk. Tech agnostic. So this exactly something that we actually did. We were a React platform before. We used to use React technology for Cult App before Aurora. And during this time, we decided that we want to move to Flutter because I think developers found that designers are too fussy and they wanted this fancy animations and whatnot. So anyway, they had to move to Flutter. So design system absolutely helped, especially the component library part of design system helped them in moving from React to Flutter. And now we are in Flutter. We are still in the transition, but for a huge chunk of the app, it is already in Flutter. Now, the big part here is pattern management. So patterns, I think we've already talked about. Pattern management, this is where a lot of effort from the company. This is essentially where the design system team lives, right? Adding new components, creating new components, editing existing components. On top of that, a design ops function of having processes in place so that all new experiences that are created, that are reviewed and aligned to the existing design system, right? This is essentially the place where the entire design system bandwidth goes, right? Design system teams bandwidth goes. So pattern management is very essential to keep this entire design system going and living. It should be changing with time, and it cannot just become something etched in stone, right? So let's go to quick recap. Scalable system and shared language. So scalable system is something that now you have future proof because it is constantly evolving. It can handle any change in tech that your product will ever come across in future, hopefully. And also at the same time, it can pivot to different brand languages if you so need, right? So that's the power of the scalable system piece. Shared language, so there's better communication between your teams, the entire EPD trio, and if you extend that system to even brand teams and creative teams, even that can be further supported with that. And now you are able to improve your focus, your product teams, your pod teams rather, I would say, for specific feature teams, more on the product, and they can leave the worry of how the UI will actually look, the minor spacing things, to the design system team, right? So there is a better distribution of skill, and you can focus more on shipping velocity. So you have faster products at higher quality, and that's how the entire thing translates to efficiency, right? So efficiency is essentially about making consistent, well-tested, high-quality, future-proof products faster. That is how I see that the overall benefit of a design system is essentially all of these five things: well-tested and high quality on top of the future-proof. Consistent, though, I'm sure pretty much everyone knows about. This is, I think, is the most important slide in my perspective, and I was very blown away when I realized this. So on in an in group, they have this UX maturity model. This is the last slide, so don't worry, we are at the end. So in an in group, they have this UX maturity model where these 6 stages are already put in place by the NN group. And over time, design system, I have seen design system, the kind of conversations we have at our place now. They are so much more product and UX focused compared to before we had the design system at place. Right? So you literally can contribute to elevating maturity of UX or overall design at your own place just by having this having part to play in design system, which I think is the biggest benefit that you can accumulate over time. That's it.
Thank you, Ronak. That was an amazing presentation. Very minimalistic, but very well explained. So, moving on to our next speaker and the last speaker of the day today is Meenu Makkar. She will be talking about how we built a design system builder here at Geeky Ants. She also represented us at React 2022. So, she's kind of like a celeb here at Geeky Ants. So, Meenu, the stage is all yours. Good evening, everybody. How are you all? I am Meenu. I work as a software developer at GeekyAnts. Currently, I am working on native base and mainly on design systems. For those who don't know what native base is, it is a component library for React and React Native. It makes your development very fast and it is open source. Yeah, apart from work, currently I am learning my first musical instrument. Do you know what this is? Yeah, this is kalimba. This is my first musical instrument, and my friend is teaching me this. Exactly, the sounds come. You can follow me on Twitter. We can connect there. I go by the handle makkar underscore Meenu. Today, we will be talking about how we built a design system builder. Actually, this is in development phase right now. So, yeah. Uh, I in the last design system meetup, we were just showing it to our friends, and we also told like it is in development. Yeah, this is in development right now also. Okay, so before I start, we need to know what a design system is. We already collected that from Devesh talk, and Chaitanya also told. So they already explained all the fundamentals of design systems. So we will not go deep in that. We'll just see. Yeah. We'll now come to what are the steps for building a design system. So these are the certain steps that we usually follow to try and understand this process better. We'll take an example of a brand. We'll take Coca-Cola. We'll make some assumptions about this brand and its design processes. So by the end of this talk, we might make a little documentation around it. The first step is analyzing the design process. There are few questions that we need to ask, like what is the design system that the company already follow, what tools do they use. I'm not sure about what Coca-Cola uses, but I think they let's just assume that they use Figma and go ahead with the next step. Next step is recognizing the brand's alphabet. Brand's alphabet is basically recognizing the brand's identity, like the feel of the brand and what the brand wants to depict. It is like, is it a professional persona that it wants to depict, or like some funny, like there are brands who just want to be, uh, who just want to connect with the new generation and just want to show that persona. So we have to recognize that. We have to identify the brand, language, colors, fonts, etc. If we talk in terms of Coca-Cola, this is the brand best known when it is happiness, joy, and good experience. The color red is depicting like the power, excitement, energy, and passion. So it also stimulates, the red color also stimulates the appetite. which works best for their brand. The next is UI auditing. Chaitanya mentioned in his talk that they have created some Excel sheets sort of thing to audit all the components they were using in their sites. So yeah, we yes, this is the step that we usually follow. We have to identify all the statistics around the product pages and the terms of design, identifying all the inconsistencies that the brand already have before like moving on to creating a design system, and identifying the most important and most used components. I found a cool tool around it, csstats.com, which does exactly the same. So let's see the result of Coca-Cola in that from that tool. So if you can see, the Coca-Cola uses a lot of red color that like might have some inconsistencies in terms of shades of red. We have to find those inconsistencies and the patterns that the site is having. So it does that very great in like graphical manner. It shows everything. Like it is showing 97 unique background colors they might be using in their website. Next is defining design principle. We are done with the analyzing part. Now we are defining things. Decide design related principles such as brand identity and values that are depicted using designs. A good way is to use like a mood board and start jotting down things. So what are Coca-Cola's design principles? If we build a design system of Coca-Cola, design principles can be real, bold, the power of red, and familiar yet surprising. Yes. Now the next step is building a component library, which most developers can connect to. It consists of all the style and design parts of a website or a software to help designers and developers work consistently and reduce the repetitive work. I think design system tech part of design system starts with component library only. In the website these buttons have same styles and across the website they have same border radius, uppercase text and all. Even the color is same. Similarly the product cards in the catalog that they have, merchandise shop, these rounded buttons, these buttons can be defined as a component while you're building a design system or a component library. Next is defining rules. Defining rules about what is allowed by the team and what is not while extending a design system and use it in the most creative way possible. The objective is to not lock the designer in a particular direction and not yet divert from the design system as well. So, designers and developers should follow a particular process before introducing new components or new tokens. Let's see how these are kept in mind while introducing this banner. So, Coca Cola was introducing some new flavors which didn't go with their branding, which was red. So, they still kept the button red and they mix matched everything, which goes really well. Like, it gives a fresh feel to the launch. Next is after building a system, we have to define the governance of it. There are three models of governance strategy: solitary, centralized, and federated. Solitary is basically one person decides and approve all the design decisions, and the team follows that. Centralized model is basically where a team decides all that and everyone in the team except from them, like other teams follow that. And the federated, where several people from several teams govern that, are in charge of the system. I'm not sure about Coca-Cola, like what they follow, but they have different brands under the Coca-Cola company. So there might be a collapse of federated or centralized model in there. The last one is document and communicate. So it is very important to document your design system, which is built. It works as a single source of truth for your brand. I think Coca-Cola has that internally. We'll also build one. So yeah, we have these steps, and currently like we are building a design system builder. So we are trying to solve these steps, like automating all these, and build a tool around it. So yeah, we at GeekyAnts were always into building things. We first built BuilderX. It generates React and React Native code for you. There were a lot of features by which you could easily build production ready applications, but this has some limitations. So we could not reach to its full potential. Then the native based version 3 were released. It was highly accessible and universal, highly customizable as well. So we thought that we already have a great library which works on the all the platforms. So we thought of building a native based builder. So while we were building native based builder, we realized we have a problem of like maintaining design system in applications. So we thought of first solving design system in native based builder. So this design system builder can also be used in isolation, like from design native based builder. Native based builder is basically app builder, and design system just builds the design system of your application. So this can be used in the isolation, and uh, people who are manually creating their apps can use this design system, which is being built by the design system builder. So let's talk about the modules and the services that are involved in this design system builder. The services are, we need theme. So this is generating the theme, which can be used in Chakra, Native Base, or Tailwind, which most people use these days. Then creating a component library and building a documentation website that includes all the in-depth knowledge about particular design system. And then designers need a Figma component library. So these were the services that we needed, and the modules to get those services were, we needed a bunch of modules to serve this. So we built a theme editor, and then asset management system, and then content management system, which is included in the DSX editor that we call. And we have a Figma plugin which generates all the Figma component library. Yeah. So we'll talk about how this entire flow works. So this is a very complicated diagram that I am also trying to understand. So the first DSX editor, which has theme management, asset management, and content management, which creates component library for us, generates theme, and we can have website and documentation around design systems. Then from the component library that we have here, that we get from DSX editor, we we can actually have Figma plugin from that. We can actually have Figma component library, uh, where Figma plugin acts as a bridge, and then we can design screens in Figma and replicate those. So we'll see one by one. First is theme editing. we are managing theme, and let's see. So basically, we have created a visual tool around that. You just have to go to the tool. It is not live currently. We'll just change the theme. This is on top of native base. We can have a component library from it, and we can also export the theme. So this is how the theme JSON looks like, which you have to pass to extend your theme while using native base. We are targeting Chakra and Tailwind as well. So this is the theme JSON file that you get. I have changed some primary color and the button component, basically the variant solid of it. So yes, this you just have to pass this theme in your application that you're building with native base. Next is we can also have a component library, because you can if you want to use your own component library, which is based on native base, because this tool is based on native base. So we can have a component library from it. You just have to download it from here, and you get a zip which you can publish on your GitHub, and and you can have your package ready, the component library package, and make screens from that. Next is documentation side, which plays a very important role in maintaining a design system at a large scale. So to solve this problem, we kind of generating a brand website which uses the theme that you made, the asset management that you edit assets, and the content management is also there. You will add content, and this entire thing will come in the website. So this is the sort of website that it automatically generates. It has all the components, design principle that you wrote by yourself by deciding, design tokens, assets, and everything in and around your brand. So this is the asset management module that we made. Similarly, we have content management system. So now we'll talk about how this design system builder tool works for designer. So we made a Figma plugin which generates a Figma component library for you, and it has a single source of truth. So it works on uh, the component library is the single source of truth, and the Figma component library that it generates has the same uh, value. So the chances of inconsistency are very less. So we'll see how we are building component library out of it. We are just using that plugin, and the entire token mapping and component mapping is there. We have a full-fledged component library Figma. We have all the variants of button. We can change the styles on go and create a new instance of button as well. So how does this Figma library getting auto generated? So we have a storybook and a component library to for the developers to work on, and they can add their custom components there as well. To create a Figma component library, we should have all the visual variants of the component. We are creating HTML pages around it, like every component has its HTML page, and then we have a plugin in Figma which take all the variants from the hosted HTML pages and map those properties to the Figma component library. We have written a mapper in the plugin basically. So this entire flow gets completed. Us- at last, I wanted to summarize. So, what are the advantages of this automated tool? Uh, I think this is a great place to start with and then scale. So basically, we can manage our design system from one platform, like one tool is there, and we can manage the design system from there. We have design to code consistency because the source of truth is single. We have auto generated component library. We can add more custom components in that. We don't need to develop component library from scratch. Yeah. And designers and developers don't have to use their change their platform to work on this platform because it just help, it doesn't want to add more dependency. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much, Meenu. That was extremely insightful. So, with that, we are pretty much towards the end of the meetup. Thank you, everyone who have come here physically, and to everybody who was viewing us online as well. So, we have a small request. I would request everybody to just be seated for a minute or two. We would ask all the speakers to come on the stage. We can take one photo for the